Alright, I am going to give anime recommendations. Brief anime recommendations. Yeah, I know, this makes me sound like a total weeb, but I'm not really a weeb. I guess I am kind of a weeb, but not that much. The first anime that I watched was not called an anime at the time. This was before the term was widely used. Maybe it wasn't used at all. In fact, I think in those days they called it Japanimation. But anyway, it was Star Blazers, which I think might in Japan be called the Battleship Yamato, which is based, the name is based on an actual battleship that was created at the end of World War II and almost immediately was sunk. So I think the idea is that that battleship is resurrected and turned into a spaceship. I mean, I think that it's actually intended to be that specific battleship, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, it's a space battleship. It's a battleship that's turned into a spaceship with some magical technology that is given to the Earth by this beautiful alien girl who comes to Earth or Mars or somewhere. Anyway, she comes to, save the Earth, because the Earth is under attack by these aliens that are bombarding it. And basically the Earth is doomed, but they set off on a rescue mission. The rescue mission is to go to this distant planet that's in another, I think it's in the large, one of the clouds, Magellanic Clouds, or something like that. Isn't it? I don't think it's in the Andromeda Galaxy. And I don't think it's in the Milky Way. I think it's in one of those clouds. But anyway, it's far, far away. But they have this faster-than-light travel, and they have this thing called the wave motion gun. And so they have this ability to travel far, far into space. And so they go on this journey that begins in the solar system. It begins with them traveling to Jupiter, then Pluto, and there are a couple of fights along the way. And then deeper into space, and they have all kinds of adventures. So, it's a space adventure anime with, of course, love interests, a little bit of romance thrown in there. Anyway, I enjoyed that, and I watched that when I was a kid. I wouldn't say that's my favorite anime, but it is good. I would recommend it. My favorite anime has to be Nichijou. It's just so zen. It's funny. It's really well done. It has its own unique art style that is really well done. The story is good, but it's not just the story and the characters. I mean, a lot of it is due to the creator, whose name I would have a hard time pronouncing, Keiichi Arawi or something like that. But it's also due to the anime studio that produced it. They just put a lot of work into making it a work of art. And it's really just zen. I mean, it's like, it's just about weird things. Like, it's a slice of life anime about a robot who wants to be a normal girl. And the creator of the robot is a little girl called the Professor, Hakase, who is always, eating snacks and being a naughty brat kid, but also somehow has the ability to make robots and lives alone with this robot that acts kind of as an older sister to her and kind of takes care of her. And it's also the story of these schoolgirls, this trio, Yuko, Mio-chan, and Mai-chan. And they're just, all three of them are just characters. Yuko is the most lovable character because she has, she has the worst luck of any human being, but she has the most optimistic attitude. So she's always getting beaten down by life, but then she's always bouncing back. And even just thinking about the anime now, I'm just starting to smile and almost break into laughter thinking about some scenes. There are some scenes from that anime that are just so funny. You can enjoy it as a kid or as an adult. It's like, I watched it with my young daughter. I can't remember what age she was at the time, but it was She was pretty young, like, I don't know, 7 or something like that. Maybe a bit older, I don't remember, but we really enjoyed it. Okay, I'll recommend another slice of life anime, which is, well, they're all slice of life, aren't they? Except for the Star Blazers. Oh no, they're not all slice of life. What am I saying? Okay, I'll recommend one that isn't slice of life, that's kind of a science fiction, dark, apocalyptic, and it's probably the most philosophical anime, I would say. And that is Ergo Proxy, which, the name comes from cogito ergo sum, which is I think, therefore I am. And in the story, there is a virus called the cogito virus that infects robots that are called autoraves and gives them a soul. It gives them true consciousness. But that's not the pivot of the story. That's just one of the subplots of the story. The story is very weird, and it's almost impossible to explain. But in that anime, they explore a lot of philosophical ideas. And also, I just love the aesthetics of it. It's dark, it's kind of gloomy, but it's got a beauty to it. The main characters go on this journey across a desolated Earth. This is set in the distant future after the Earth has gone through some kind of mass extinction event, which I think was caused by a release of methane clathrates from the ocean floor or something like that, so a massive release of methane. I think it's supposed to be something like the end Permian extinction, so almost all life on the planet has been wiped out. The atmosphere is poisonous, although it seems to be okay at the time of this, but it was poisonous for a long time. And humanity survived by living in domed cities, and the domed cities are run kind of like technocracies, I guess, like top-down, technocratic societies, but they're quasi-religious, and everything is managed, and human beings are served by these robots who are essentially there to both help them and kind of spy on them and manipulate them. So it gets into all kinds of issues about free will, consciousness, relationships to technology. You know, the idea of robots, are the robots actually helping you, or are they controlling you, right? What does control mean? What is free will? What is your choice? And it also just has really neat dystopian science fiction scenes, like empty cities in which robots are going around mowing the lawns and stuff like that, or in which the supermarkets are fully stocked but nobody is there because everybody has died. Just weird stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, I definitely recommend Ergo Proxy. And I would also recommend not trying to understand the narrative while you watch it, because it takes like 2 times and maybe doing a few Google searches before you're going to understand the actual story. So just kind of go with the flow. All right, let's see. You know, I gotta say, I really enjoyed The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya and the spin-offs of that series. I'm not sure what it is about that series. It's a classic, and the characters vary between likable and kind of annoying. The 2 main characters are somewhat annoying, Kion and Haruhi. The 2 other girls, well, actually there are more girls, I guess the cast sort of grows over time. The other girls tend to be pretty likable, pretty nice characters, like Mikaru and Yuki Nagato. So, like, you like those characters. You don't dislike Kion, but he is sort of, he's that kind of irritatingly whiny character, or, you know, like, he doesn't seem to appreciate things very much. And I see a lot of that in anime, these male characters that are kind of like just whiny lumps. They don't have much ambition or whatever. They're just kind of cruising along. But sometimes he's likable when he's like the voice of reason, or, you know, Mr. Let's Be Practical giving a little lecture. Then he's kind of funny. So anyway, I don't know. The story it's kind of weird. It's about this girl who somehow has godlike powers, and she doesn't know she has godlike powers, and she wants things to be exciting, so she starts a club at her school to seek out strange things like aliens and espers and time travelers or whatever. And it turns out that everybody in the club, other than Kyon, is either a time traveler or an esper or a space robot, alien robot, or whatever. So that's like the little joke, and they're there to keep an eye on her because she doesn't know that she's a god. And so they have to sort of humor her and cajole her to prevent her from destroying the world. It's kind of a bizarre premise, but it's really just a slice of life anime with a bizarre premise and some, that just allows them to do some weird stuff in the anime. I guess I don't know, there's some, it's really cozy too. Like some of the episodes are just really relaxing and cozy. Of course, there is something really annoying associated with that, which is in season 2, 8 episodes were essentially the same episode repeated over and over and over with minor variations. Because I think the writers went on strike or something. So it's like they're stuck in a time loop. So you really only get, I don't know, what is it, like 5 real episodes? I mean, if they'd had 2 episodes that repeated like that, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but having 8 is just pointless, and most people don't watch all of them anyway, so that's disappointing, because if they could have produced more episodes, then, there'd be more to watch. But, hey, that's still pretty good. Alright, then I guess the next one I will recommend is Welcome to the NHK, which is dark. It's set around, I think, around the turn of the century. Like, I think late 90s or early noughties, when the internet was starting to become a thing, when people were starting to get into some of these addictive, immersive simulation games, and pornography on the internet was becoming a big thing, although it was still, it was mostly just pictures, not like videos. But anyway, it's about this guy who is a hikikomori. He is a shut-in. He has become a recluse. He went to Tokyo to go to school, but he just sort of gave up on life and just lives in his apartment on his allowance, goes out at night to the corner store to buy food and smokes, and then sometimes sits in the park and has a smoke. And unbeknownst to him, there is this girl who has been kind of watching him and has maybe a crush on him. He must be reasonably good looking, because she's not the only girl that seems interested in him, despite his loser lifestyle. And their paths cross, which might be sort of contrived. There's no point in me trying to explain the whole plot. I mean, it's quite complicated, but it's really a story of a guy who is kind of lost in the world and a girl who is kind of lost in the world, and they find each other, but it's not some kind of fairy tale romance. It's like some kind of, like, romance from hell. Like, it's just one big disaster after another, and yet, and this guy, he kind of does everything wrong. Like, he falls into every alienation trap that the modern world has to offer. The sort of easy life of just living in a fantasy world in your room is one of them. So just avoiding life entirely is a trap, right? He's alienated from life entirely. Then he meets this guy who is doing this, who's making games, but the games are basically porn. It's like a game in which you try to sleep with girls in this fantasy world. So there's this guy who's like going to school to become a game developer. And the main character, Sato, gets drawn into this guy's world kind of by accident, because he knows the guy from high school. And they start working on a game together, but Sato tends to fall into every trap. Like, he becomes addicted to porn, and he gets so addicted to porn that he, like, at some point he goes out and tries to spy on little girls, like, so he's a total degenerate, right? And he can't help himself. And then he gets into like all kinds of different things. Like he gets immersed in an online sim game, and he joins a cult, a suicide cult, and he joins a pyramid scheme. So it's like he just can't do anything right. This guy is susceptible to every trick, every trap of the modern world. He falls into every one of them. And so really it's about all the alienation traps of the modern world and the predicament of people in the modern world who have enough to eat but are lacking a purpose, and they can't find meaning, and the places they find meaning are in these artificial substitutes, right? Like these fake things like porn or video games or like a cult or a pyramid scheme. Like everything is fake. Everything is a delusion. Anyway, so that's what makes it really relevant. It's kind of ahead of its time. It was anticipating these problems, and I think that's partly because some of them came to Japan early on, but I don't think people anticipated the full extent of them. And I mean, the end of that series is well, I won't say. You should watch it. What else is there? Oh, well, I guess Lucky Star. Lucky Star has some hilarious scenes, but mostly it's just this cozy little slice of life. It's these teenage girls going to school, talking about stuff, doing little things, and that's it. It just goes on like that, but it pulls you into that world, and you just, it's just sort of pleasant to watch these girls and listen to their dialogue and, the little funny little misadventures they have and stuff like that. It's not like Nichijou or Haruhi Suzumiya, in that it doesn't have any kind of weird plot device. It doesn't have any... It truly is just slice of life. Of course, the girls are amusing, but other than that, there's really no... There's no gimmick. Alright, what else is there? I feel like I'm missing something. Some important one. And if as soon as I turn this off, I'm going to think, oh, I should have talked about that. What am I missing? I mean, I've watched a number of other animes. I've watched Death Note, which was good but bleak. Steins Gate is also quite bleak, and it's hard to watch. I mean, I got pulled into it and I watched the whole thing, but... Oh, I know what I was going to say. Macross, I mean, this is another funny... Oh, they're all kind of silly, right? Macross Frontier. Okay, I have to admit, I kind of like it partly for the weird art style. It's very different from other anime. It's like a space opera, whatever. It's about music, girls competing for this guy by singing. It's about, young love. It's about space battles. It's about these Transformer type things. And it's about weird aliens. And, it's just fun. I can't really explain it, but yeah, I enjoyed Macross Frontier. What drew me into it was the art. Yeah, I've tried watching some of the other Macross things, but I just couldn't get into them. But I did get pulled into the Macross Frontier world. Got sucked into that vortex. There are also some good anime movies that I have enjoyed, like My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away. I watched those with my kids. Most recently, I watched Whispers of the Heart with my oldest daughter, and we both enjoyed that. It's more for a teenage to adult audience. Not that it's got anything risque in it, but it's like, about young love and life and meaning, finding meaning in your life and stuff like that. And one of the things I like about anime is the art. And also specifically the attention to detail in nature scenes and in just indoor environment scenes or cityscapes. like, they put a lot of effort into creating a lot of detail so that you get a sense of the space. And that's missing from, Western cartoons, which typically just have, like, a solid color background or some, like, very simplistic buildings or trees or whatever. It's not aesthetically pleasing. Sometimes it is, but and it does what it does. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that style, but the Japanese style almost sacralizes ordinary life. It's got this type of aesthetic conservatism in it, which is just the love of reality, the love of the way the world is, like the love of the way nature is. And it's not just nature, but it's like nature with power lines running through it, because that's reality, right? So they don't erase the power lines and just show you a beautiful nature scene. They show you the beautiful nature scene and the power lines, and it's still beautiful. Or they show you the inside of a messy room. There are books lying all over the place and clothes on the floor. And that gives you a sense of, this is like reality. This is like ordinary life. Yeah, I have clothes on the floor in my room too. I have a jumble of papers and books on my desk too. So it kind of brings you into the world, even though the characters are often not very realistically drawn, obviously. The anime race is not the human race. It's not clear what exactly it is, but you're brought into that world because of the familiarity of the little details of it, and that also evokes a kind of nostalgia when it's an anime from 10 years ago or 15 years ago, because you'll see details that you remember, like, the way computers used to look, or there's more paper because people did more things with paper, right? Or just little things that will bring back memories and kind of bring you back to an earlier time. So I find that it's kind of immersive in that way. That's one of the reasons I like anime. It tends to be visually immersive because of the level of detail. Whereas if I'm watching something like The Simpsons or Scooby-Doo or whatever, I'm outside watching it through the screen, right? It's like watching it through a window. Like, I'm very aware of this distance from it, but because of the detail that's in anime, I often sort of become immersed in that space, that world, and I don't feel that kind of distance from it. So anyway, I'm a big fan of that art style, and I also like Japanese storytelling to some extent, because it's not just the same old, moral narratives being recycled over and over. Like, most Western storytelling is very structured. Like, there are a few basic story patterns, and they are used over and over again. And not only is it predictable, but it's kind of annoying. It's like propaganda. It's like, they're sending you a moral message in every story. And while there are moral messages in, moral, philosophical, whatever you want to call them, life messages, in anime, it's not as in your face. And the characters are rarely moral exemplars. They're often flawed and thus more human, right? Even though they're the anime race. There's something very human about anime, actually, like very humanistic about it, more so than Hollywood movies, and also about Japanese storytelling. There's something very humanistic about it, not in this sense of worshipping humans, not in the sense of humanism as an ideology, but in the sense of reflecting the truth about human nature and the world that we live in. Not perfectly, right? Obviously, the characters are not exactly like real life, and obviously in real life, some loser guy doesn't have 3 girls to choose from. So there's a lot of fantasy, obviously, but they don't shy away from some of the darker truths about human nature. Many anime deal with very dark truths and very dark and deep questions, philosophical questions, like what is the purpose of life, or is there any meaning to existence, or dealing with immoral nihilism in one form or another. Like, there's a lot of that, and also sexuality. They're not as obviously a lot of anime is very sexualized, and that can be sort of discomforting, especially when it involves, younger characters, because that's a big moral taboo here. But there's a kind of honesty about sexuality in those shows that you don't get in the West. You tend to get either in-your-face sexuality, like just sort of sexual jokes constantly, or a kind of almost sexual puritanism. And of course, then you also have the like gender ideology that's constantly pushed here. But I mean, there's a lot of that in anime too. It's not immune to those things. But I don't know. I mean, it's not perfect, right? I don't want to sing its praises to the roof. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it is kind of refreshing. It's different, and it's different mostly in ways that are aesthetically pleasing and engaging, and that make you think, rather than just reinforcing these, deep grooves that Hollywood has worn in your brain, All right, anyway, I guess that's all I have to say for now. So, yeah, I hope that was somewhat interesting, and if you have any anime recommendations, let me know.